Hi, and this is a response to Blows Himself Up Dude's video, First Issues with Characters. And I have a few myself, so let's get going, because baby got back issues. Now, I've talked about the first couple of issues a couple of times, but I'll bring them up here again. The first is Spidey Super Stories, number 27 from 1977. It's written by Ralph Macchio, Jim Scullett, and D. John Zimmerman, and drawn by Winslow Mortimer. And for those of you who don't know, Spidey Super Stories is a comic that was sort of designed and geared towards younger children. And it was co-sponsored by the Electric Company, which at the time had a Spider-Man segment on the show. And each issue had very simple dialogue for a kid to understand and read. And it was usually 3 stories. 2 kind of cute Marvel stories, and 1 incorporating the Electric Company characters with Spider-Man. And then there'd be explanations on who the characters are. There'd be little profiles here and there. And what's interesting is this is not only my first Spider-Man comic, it's also my first Thor and my first comic book too. And I took this comic book with me all the time for a while. I just read it and reread it and read it, and I was very excited about it. And I thought Spider-Man was pretty funny and cool. And I was pretty used to him on the cartoons. The 60s show was in syndication during the 70s. And the Electric Company appearances, and of course the incredibly bad live-action show with Nicholas Hammond, which I watched. I loved. I mean, whenever it was on, I checked it out. And I don't know, it was cute and it's fun. But let's see. Yeah, that's my first comic. Oh, by the way, also the Electric Company features Easy Reader in the story, and Easy Reader was played by Morgan Freeman in the TV show. So in this comic, we have a Spider-Man Morgan Freeman crossover. Anyway, the second issue is the first time I saw Batman in comics. It is Detective Comics 468, and it is written by Bob Rozarkis, and Marshall Rogers and Terry Austin did the art. And I thought I had a pretty good idea who Batman was at this point in 77, because I'd seen him in Super Friends and the Filmation show, and the Batman regular series with Adam West. And boy, was I in for a new surprise. First off, Marshall Rogers' art is beautiful, and he draws Batman so spectacularly with a huge cape, and he looks menacing and creepy. And as a kid, I was just really in awe of the fact that, it developed this idea that I had a Batman into something cooler. And the villain was kind of goofy. It's the Calculator. And this is back before the Calculator was an evil Barbara Gordon. He had a costume where he pushed buttons, and any kind of random shit would come out of the top of his head. And to this day, I don't understand how that works. But also the Justice League without Superman and Wonder Woman appear. And so I got to see a whole bunch of different new characters that I'd never seen before. And God, I just loved it. It was a lot of fun. And the first time I ever saw Superman, I'm not quite sure, but I think my first Superman comic was Action Comics 497 from 79. It was Cary Bates and Kurt Swan doing the art. And it was kind of a typical, done-in-one Superman story, which is amazing to see. I mean, Superman is almost like X-Men now, where there's so much huge story arcs going on with plots after plots on top of each other, and just a simple story is just almost unheard of now. But the cover really excited me. I mean, he's throwing the top of a fucking building in an asteroid. I was deeply impressed. It's a story where he's being sort of controlled, and he has no idea why. And it's kind of has that 50s sci-fi feel, but still has this kind of 70s kind of story pacing and stuff like that. It was an interesting time for Superman. My first Wonder Woman is 262, and it was written by Jerry Conway and drawn by Rick Estrada. And I'd been watching the Wonder Woman TV show with Linda Carter, and she's also in Super Friends. And this was not too different than what I expected, really. Unfortunately, I was disappointed by the issue because on the cover she's beating the crap out of these street gang guys, and to be honest, that's kind of over on the third page, really. And then she's fighting this weird African tribes villain guy. I don't know. It really didn't make a huge impression on me, but I still remember it as my first Wonder Woman. The first time I ever saw Wolverine was in Contest of Champions 3. And it's an early crossover Marvel had been playing around with, and it was written by a whole bunch of guys. Mark Gruenwald, Steve Grant, Bill Mulatto, and John Romita Jr., a young John Romita Jr. did the art. And it was a pretty cool series. It really jumped. Oddly enough, I loved this crossover because I got to see a whole bunch of new characters that I'd never seen before in it. And I remember seeing Wolverine for this first time, and he's fighting Black Panther. And Black Panther is starting to think during the fight, is he really just trying to kill me? And I remember thinking, wow, what a dick. Anyway, the first time I'd seen the Hulk in comic form was issue 237. I had been watching the Hulk TV series, and I remember Hulk really frightening me as a child when I first saw him. It took me kind of a little while to kind of get used to him. And then I picked up the comic written by Roger Stern, Sal Buscema, who was doing Hulk forever. And the cover has Hulk tearing a goddamn building in half with the headline, "When a City Dies." And it's quite spectacular. Matter of fact, I was first shocked that Hulk is talking, and then the whole issue is him being mad at some criminal named Jackson who has kidnapped this woman, and he has her at the other side of a city. And he spends the whole issue tearing through the city, kind of almost the story testing his strength over and over again. And I was pretty shocked of how powerful he was, and much more powerful than he was in the show. I mean, he could be shot and hurt in the show, and here he's just taking so much damage and so much destruction he's causing. There's kind of a great scary scene where Jackson's trying to get to the roof where a helicopter is, and he sees Hulk appear in the sky, and it's quite menacing, actually. I remember being really excited about this book. This is one of the ones I read a lot. And then lastly, I actually had a few issues of Captain America before this. This is issue 236. But I'm actually talking about the fact that Daredevil, this is the first time I ever saw Daredevil. This issue was written by Roger McKenzie, who I think was writing Daredevil at the time, and art is by Michael Fleischer. And it's halfway through a story. I've just picked it up in the middle, where Captain America's falling, and this new guy I'd never seen before in a red costume is flying a biplane. And it took me a few pages to realize that Daredevil was blind, and I just couldn't get over that. Daredevil is basically playing his backup in this whole storyline, where he's fighting this guy named Dr. Faustus or something like that. But yeah, as much as I enjoyed the Captain America story, I remember being pretty impressed by Daredevil himself, so I definitely decided to check a few issues myself, and that would come later, of course. But that's pretty much it. And I have to say, a lot of people complain about how cartoons portray superheroes and stuff too cutesy and stuff. But what I find interesting is that these kids watching Brave and the Bold and Superhero Squad will eventually pick up a comic of the Avengers or Batman and be shocked as well, and maybe be more interested in what he or she has to find. Anyway, that's my issues. Thanks.